We are rocking and rolling on a Thursday morning, post a full round of MLS playoffs. It's Soccerwise with David Goff and Tommy Scoop. Back for another big one. We've got a lot to talk about from what we've seen so far over the last week. We've got MLS player salary dumps. We've got coaching rumors in Atlanta. We've got openings in St. Louis and New York Red Bulls. And Tom, the only thing that people want to know is how is the men's league playoffs going? Where are we at right now? Because I know right now my bracket is sitting on the edge with my picks.
Easy semifinal win last night, despite the fact that in warmups I turned to my teammates and said, I feel structurally unwell. Like, it wasn't like sore. It wasn't like I have like a bum ankle or something. I was like, everything feels not quite right. We still got it through it though. Let's see. In this league, we have played 19 games.
Okay.
19 wins over the 2 sessions. Yeah.
You didn't have to tell me the second part. You just had to tell me how many games we played. I didn't even know the record.
We got the final next week. Can't wait for it. But even though I was still adequate, wasn't at my best. After the game, my college center back who just turned 30, signing deals. I got him in. When we did our jerseys, I bought an extra one, and I did it on purpose with his number. I sent it to him. I was like, bro, whenever you want it, the 6 is here for you, bro.
This is like when the Clippers put Blake Griffin's name in the rafters at free agency and then traded him like 6 months later to Detroit.
I wouldn't trade him. That's the thing. And he knows it. That's why, because I got him to play last night and he goes, I think I'm in for the winter. I was like, damn right you are. The long game. It all worked.
It's a great feeling. It is a great feeling. Edwin in the chat says had their co-ed playoff last night since St. Louis couldn't make it there. So Edwin, let us know how you did. I currently not playing in the league structure. I'm just pickup. So each game is a championship on its own. In the last game I played, I was telling you we played 4v4 instead of 5v5. It was
that's the elite. That's the C-suite mentality.
It was 900,000 degrees. I sweat through everything. It rained, which made it hotter somehow. We went from up 4 goals to down 3 with 2 minutes to go. We equalized, and then we lost on golden goal. But like at that point, it's not even a victory for them because they let us back in the game. So emotionally, we come out of it and we're cruising forward, which will be the story with some of the teams in Major League Soccer. There will be some teams, I think, that come out of the playoff series, even with a loss, saying like, oh, we looked better. We could do something special going forward. Most of those teams would have to be lower seeds. And right now, 7 of the 8 lower seeds are trailing going into the second game. The lone road victory is NYCFC. So we're gonna talk through every single series because we're excited. We want to. We did some of it in the Monday show, but now we get to talk about every single game, and all of the teams will play over the course of this weekend. But we're going to do it in order of what we think has the highest probability of being an upset in the long term, which means these teams will be able to get a victory in game 2 and then go on the road and steal a victory outside of NYCFC. And then, as I said, we'll talk about the MLS player salary dumps. So give us your thoughts. Give us any of the big topics you want us to hit there. And then a little breaking news around Tata and Martino over the last few days. And there's some other job openings as well that we will get into. But let's start with the playoffs. I have no idea why the LAFC Austin game at Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time and 10:30 local time. So it's been a long playoff experience from last Friday till now. Let's start in our upset rankings and let's talk about every single game. And we start with NYCFC. Me and Tom went through these and made these together. The lone road team to get a win, a 1-0 victory in Charlotte in the opening game. That was on Tuesday night. Which I don't believe Dean Smith was super excited about having a Tuesday night 6:45 local time.
Didn't love that.
Yeah, that seemed to be a conversation.
You know what I didn't love? Sideways passes and terrorist soccer. So 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other.
Which game you're talking about? You're talking about Charlotte in that game. Okay, just making sure because there's been a couple this week here and there. NYCFC gets the victory. Alonso Martinez solo effort. One of the best pure finishers in Major League Soccer. You don't often see that level of creativity and build-up from him from as deep, but called his own number, gets the goal, and then NYCFC, I would say fairly comfortably sees it out, even with Charlotte applying numbers and putting pressure on. What did you make of this game, and what do you make of the potential for Charlotte to steal one now on the road?
Right. So the overarching kind of point of our bit here, like this is the series that we feel has the most likelihood for the upset. Again, it's 4-5, so it's always going to be tight, and NYCFC winning in Charlotte obviously makes this the clear answer. And what I saw from this game, it's just going to be a painfully obvious basic takeaway. Alonso Martinez is awesome, man. Like, he should be viewed as one of the better strikers in MLS. When I did our best 11s and stuff, I think I had him on like my third team. I don't know. This guy's just been so consistently been one of the best center forwards in the league. And most of it, Goss, like you said, he's one of the best finishers in the league. The timing of his runs, like everything he does off the ball and like the center forward stuff is what he's best at. The goal he scored against Charlotte was a long run. Give me the ball. I'm going to beat 4 players and roll it into the bottom corner. That was a different type of goal than what he scores bangers all the time, but mostly it's a couple, 2 touches or whatever, right? Like that kind of performance from him, to give that kind of 1-2 punch with him and Nico Fernandez in that NYCFC attack, with how good the kind of structure around them is, this is kind of what they were lacking, or what he was lacking in terms of like service before Fernandez came here. Maxi Morales is obviously incredible, and everything he does, it's just a joy to still watch him at this age. But having those two be your 2 leaders, and Martinez being able to do more individually than he has in the past, man, like that was a special goal from a special player. And in the playoffs, as long as you have the structure, the team balance, and everything else around it, that frees up. Like those are like the basic components that you check before you go, okay, like you have that special player in attack. Like that's a playoff winning type player. And I think it's made me reassess where I thought NYCFC ceiling is, because honestly, with him having those moments, this is a team that could challenge Cincy or Miami if they were to continue advancing. This is a team that can challenge Philly in the next round if they get there. This is a team that obviously was good enough to go on the road against Charlotte in this game 1. Nothing is guaranteed for them to go through, but this was an extremely positive sign. And again, like Alonso Martinez, like I cannot say enough positive things.
Yeah, that star quality is something that elevates this team. They are already one of the better defensive teams, and so they have the structure and the platform for, okay, one big moment can get them over the line in a big game. They can go on the road. They can sit deep. They can sort of sit in Matt Freeze's lap if you need to and feel comfortable and confident. The other thing you see with this goal, and I think a few of the moments, which we had talked about going into it, was you had a Charlotte team without Zaha on the field because of the suspension that was overcompensating getting Toffolo into the attack because they had to. I think they overcompensated getting both fullbacks into the attack, and that the gaps would be there because for as good as Tim Ream is, he is on the other side of the age bracket that you'd like to be as a starting center back. And I think you just see the head of steam that Alonso Martinez is able to fall into that wing, pick up, and start attacking players at speed. And I think it's a really good IQ play from him to say, this is where the space is going to be. I'm going to go out wide rather than staying central. And it was a gap that Charlotte had, and I think it was clearly worked on by NYCFC going into this game. The hope with Charlotte was like, okay, who else will step up in the attack? Leo Labata was not that guy. That was the hope and expectation.
You were right.
Yeah, I said right. Idan Toklamati or Kervin Vargas, and both of them are not guys who are main options, right? When you bring support around Toklamati, he is not a guy yet in his career who can take that pressure, beat one guy, suck in pressure, and then be able to play you out of it.
Nor should that be the expectation, to be fair.
Exactly. But you needed someone to do it.
Right.
And it really, the game fell into, I think, what we could have expected in advance, which is, can you just throw enough numbers at the box that something pops through? And a Brant Bronico run is able to pop up a second chance or a second ball, or Burn getting high, which allows Vargas to come inside. So now you have overwhelming numbers on a cross. And that's really what it fell to for this Charlotte team. Goodwin had a good look late on. I think he had a couple half chances, and all of those were dump the ball in the box, numbers around the ball, win a second ball, and see if you can make something happen. And it's really unfortunate for a Charlotte team that's been really good this year, but this is who they are. Like, they are reliant on Zaha. I think it's why there was so much angst about the fouls he's receiving and the suspension he had. And you saw it play out in this one where it just felt like they got more and more panicked as the game went along. And there wasn't a calm moment of, okay, we know we'll get one. Let's just continue to play our way. It was, let's throw everything forward and try and create something out of nothing. And that's not really how this team is built. And it feels like hard to believe that NYCFC is going to lose two straight games, including one at home. In saying that, it was a 1-goal gap. Like there's not a huge difference between
Right.
these teams. And this is a Charlotte team that as well has been really, really good defensively. And Colleen has been one of the best goalkeepers in the league. So there's a lot to consider for this one. It's not cut and dry, I think, either way. But I would say going forward, my guess would be that NYCFC is the one moving on. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, and again, that's just game state, series state. They're up 1-0 going back home. They should, the home team in all of these games are going to be favorites, particularly in like the 4-5, more so than anything else. So yeah, they should be favored, and they have a huge opportunity. The other side of this is if Charlotte are able to go on the road and kind of return value there, then it's like in an NBA series when like the underdog is up 3-2 going home game 6. So you better put them away in game 6 because you don't want to go back on the road for 7. So
what about
NYCFC have a huge
Jays?
Opportunity. Yeah, there you go. A little World Series action.
This is like
crazy.
the most baseball non-Mets I've watched in 20 years, maybe. I'm all
fun
in.
series.
I'm all
What a
in.
fun
Let's
series.
go up to Toronto for a celebration.
Wasn't the pitcher last night? Wasn't he in like he was in the College World Series 18 months ago and like
No, I don't
single
think
A 8 months ago?
No, I think he was at East Carolina. I don't think he was in a college. Like he was like, I think one of the things I saw in Blue Sky was like he lost to like UTSA or something last year in college baseball, and now he's pitching in the World Series. A little context to the potential that there might only be one upset in this first round. So 2023, the first year that the MLS went to this format, there was only one upset in this round. It was Sporting Kansas City beating St. Louis as an 8-1 as the two rivals. Everything else went chalk. Last year was the crazy year.
Yeah.
Last year, 3 of the 4 Eastern Conference series were upsets. The only home team that held serve was Orlando City as a 4-5. They did so over Charlotte, and they did so in 2 penalty kick shootouts. But you had Atlanta, of course, the famous upset against Miami. You had NYCFC upset Cincinnati, and the Red Bulls the 7-2, which then led to them going to MLS Cup. And then you had one upset in the Western Conference. So 1 the first year, 4 the second year, and where we currently stand right now, potentially 1 again.
Well, so the pushback I would say is I went to look back at so I know that last year was crazy. Like how many of the road teams won game 1? Only 2 of the 8. Right. So again, that none of this, again, it's small sample size stuff, but just losing heavily at home in the first game doesn't mean that you're not going to get through.
No, the potential still exists for these teams.
Hope.
And you would say hope. It's the most dangerous thing you can give a person.
There it is.
And the expectation would be the ones that finished closer are the ones that we had ranked a little bit higher, starting with Seattle. Triple post in the penalty kick shootout. Talk about terrorism of the game. Seattle fans just melting down on Blue Sky about the way Minnesota plays. It was 80-20 possession through large stretches of this one. I'm offended by how far the towel is allowed on the field to pick up the ball for long throw-ins. I can accept the long throw, but if the ball has bounced back into the field of play and Boxall takes the towel, runs onto the field to pick up the ball, it feels like we're doing a little bit much and all of that. Dane Sinclair, once again, elevates his game in a big moment. Dude. Big chances for both teams. Danny Musovski could have won this twice. Minnesota had their looks as well. What did you make of this matchup in game 1?
Yeah. Again, going to the individual side of things, Dane Sinclair, he's box office. That penalty shootout, but during the run of play, he was incredible. Looking kind of through the numbers right now, just refreshing. Jackson Reagan had 105 passes complete.
Yeah.
That Minnesota United had 185 as an entire team. I think that shows what happened. And again, you look through that stuff, and it's kind of clear that Jackson Reagan is good on the ball. Ymar had 55 passes completed, and the rest of the back, it was clear that Seattle wanted to build the game through Reagan, and I guess Minnesota were content to that rather than trying to eliminate him out of that. I'm curious if you think all that matters for Minnesota is that they get game 1. They win in penalties. It all worked. This is how they play. This is how they want to play. They did create a few chances with transition and set pieces and stuff. This is their game model. This is their equation that they believe is the best chance to bring them to success, particularly without Yeboah being able to start. They are lacking difference makers in attack. Are you worried of Minnesota's ability to replicate this in either game 2 or game 3? And this is kind of one of those games where just ball didn't go in and Seattle are going to be fine? Or where do you stand in terms of what this portends game 1 towards 2 and possibly 3?
I think if you're Minnesota, you're not worried because the two big chances to Musovski are a warning sign. And as the game went along, it got more ragged for Minnesota. I think they got close to what they want to do, which is, can you minimize just the amount of things that happen in a soccer game, right? If you are trying to like sit deep, hold teams to shutouts, and win on set pieces and long throws and all that type of stuff, you want the least amount of things to happen in the soccer game and say like, okay, we'll get 2 chances, you get 2 chances, and we think we're going to finish them. And if we don't, we've got Dean St. Clair and PKs.
Right.
This game didn't play out perfectly like that. But I don't come out of this game thinking that that's not something Minnesota can do over the course of the next 2 games, and they only need to get 1. So I think Minnesota will still say, like, what we do works. It can work against this team. My guess is Yeboah will just be available for more and more minutes as the series goes along. Came off the bench, played a little bit for them. That could be a huge boost for them late in games, especially if they're able to take any leads and Seattle has to push numbers forward, and he can give you transition opportunities the other way. So I think Minnesota, even with the like underlying numbers saying that Seattle, I think it was 2.4 XG
correct.
for Seattle in a game that got shut out, which is crazy. And a lot of that is Musovski's 2 inside the 6. Like those are chances that get finished. Those are chances he finishes, right? He's got 14 goals this year. I still think there's opportunity. One of the things I noticed in this game, which I'm curious what Brian Schmetzer does, is I thought Jordan Morris was really effective when he was out wide, and that's part of why Musovski got the looks. And I know he's a center forward, and I know he wants to be a center forward, and I know he's good there. It just feels like in this matchup, he might be able to help the team best from a wider position.
I agree.
And you don't have Pedro de la Vega, but you got to decide someone's moving around to make that move. And I don't know if Schmetzer does that already.
I think that's a really salient point, Gus. Like, I completely agree, particularly with how these games are going to be played. Play Morris, like, put Musovski to occupy one of the 3 center backs or 2 of them, whatever. Put him centrally. And Morris plays as, like, an inside forward off the right because you're getting the natural width from Alex Roldan playing as a wingback winger. Rothrock goes off the left. Nuhu stays home, so you have your defensive structure there. And I think that just causes more problems. And yeah, like Jordan Morris, what he's best at is dangerous in space. And like, there's not going to be a lot of space, particularly if you put another forward around him. It's going to be much, much tighter. But he's good enough to really make an impact there. And they did that at the end of the game. Again, I would really, really like them to start that way. If
you drop Jesus,
that's the question. And like, I think you do.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult conversation with Jesus Ferreira, but right now it's not about difficult conversations. It's about doing whatever's best for the team to win. And then you can tell Jesus, like, hey, you're still going to be part of this game. You'll come in and make a difference in the second half. And again, or hopefully from Seattle, if you're Brian Schmetzer, you're hoping that, hey, this is what we need to do to get through, and then reassess in the next round when they play likely San Diego. Yeah. This is going to be a different game state, and we'll play kind of, I don't know, the whole point of the strength of this roster, of having so many quality players and so many players who are versatile to play different roles and areas, is the ability to change your 11 depending on your opponent. And if you're Jesus Ferreira, you don't like that. Of course, everybody wants to be starting, but they have like 15 to 17 starting quality players.
Yeah.
Particularly some of the ones that are injured right now. But like right now, they have plenty of options. And I think that one is their best route to success.
And it comes to, I think, with Jordan, you're matched up against Romero a lot in this. There's space because Markanic's like the guy going forward. And so you need to have the physicality to be able to battle with a guy who is more of a center back, but then Jordan has the speed when he gets turned to beat him 1v1. And that combination, it feels like, is the right call. Ryan Kent, there was hopes he would be available, doesn't make the game day roster. He could become available. I think a start is probably way too far ahead for him, but he is a natural wide player who could maybe take advantage of some of the spaces out there to help this Seattle team. The other injury news is that Hassani Dotson gets you 20 plus minutes in this game.
Yeah.
So again, for Minnesota, if you don't seal it this weekend, like it's 2 weeks you have where Dotson and Yeboah can get more fit and be more available. And maybe that's the 0.5% they need to get over the line across these 2 games, whatever they give them and whatever it ends up being. Minnesota's one of the best atmospheres. Like, it's just, I'm glad they have home playoff games. It just was fun to watch. It looked like a playoff atmosphere. Like, it felt like it. It was cold. It's, under the lights, the stadium bounces. We are doing Minnesota as our 50 states of soccer this week. So we're going to have Wes Burdine on the happy hour. Blackheart, one of the best soccer bars in the country. And it's just amazing where this market has come from, like, oh, I don't know if this is a soccer market, to, you're getting a good atmosphere. They've got a women's semi-pro team that's selling out 5,000 people every single game. And like, this team has a real shot at making an MLS Cup run. I will still say in all of this, I think I picked Seattle in one of the bracket challenges we did, and I don't feel worse about that. Like, I still think this is a battle-tested Seattle team. I don't think they come out of this game thinking they can't. The PKs were wild, though. This is a wild PK experience. It hit the post 3 times across the 2 teams in a row, and then my guy Danny Barcelona pulls his strike wide. Danny Leyva, it's brutal. You come off the bench, you touch the ball maybe once, and then you take a penalty kick. Like, I get you have specialists, but that is tough.
Him and Julian Gressel both subbed in, did not touch the ball in regulation, and both missed their penalties.
So maybe it's really hard to do that, and maybe we should
at least give a, like, I like the idea of making a change based on the potential for penalties. Don't do it in a situation where neither player is going to touch the ball. I just think that's unfair to the players. Shout out to Julian Gressel, looking a little Slim Shady out there. I love the new haircut. It made me happy. Made me smile. It's good.
I have a feeling Suzanne has some thoughts for Touchline Taylor. That's going to be coming at Kickback Committee next week when we talk all about this. Reminder, we've got our bracket challenge out there. So if you entered for MLS, you can win each league on its own, and you get some Kickback Soccerwise gear for that. But if you want the grand
let's go
prize,
to Chili's.
If you want the grand prize, which is $200 spending spree at club of your choice, you have to enter all 4 leagues and be number 1. And USL Championship and USL League One, those brackets are open right now. So if you've entered, you'll get an email with those links. We also have them across all of our socials on Kickback and Soccerwise. So go there to enter. That gets you the opportunity to win across all 4 leagues. NWSL bracket will come next week. Same. You pick your tiers. You pick your team you want to double the points on. Game theory states you shouldn't pick one Knoxville in USL League One because it's the only one everyone else is picking. But shout out to my Owls, baby. Union Omaha looking to do it once again. So those are open, and you can go and become a part of those. Do you think we are talking Seattle, Minnesota game 3 when we get to next week?
Yes.
Okay. I agree. So this is one I'm excited to talk about again. This is one that I think will be one of the closest series we thought going into it, and it still feels that way. Let's move to our next series, which I still feel the same I did, even though the result didn't go the way I expected. Columbus FC Cincinnati. So I picked Columbus for the upset in this one. Cincinnati gets the 1-0 win at home. Denke fumbles the ball over the line finally late on. I think it's the 78th minute to get the goal. But the point being, it wasn't the smooth, clean buildup. There was a decent chunk of chances. I know you were pretty impressed by Ekeneke down the right wing, giving some opportunities. But overall, this felt very FC Cincinnati 2025. And we had the question, we had a comment on YouTube a week ago that was like, oh, everyone else gets apologized for when they're not performing, guys are hurt, whatever, except Cincinnati. And it's like, Cincinnati's underlying numbers are so far off from what their production is that you have to continue to question it. And the performances remain the same. And that's what it felt like in this game, was like, this is not a cohesive Cincinnati team. Brenner and Tenke and Evander are not playing off of each other. It's not making life easier for other guys, except for, I will say, Ekeneke was the one who was finding the gaps and was taking advantage of the defensive focus centrally.
Ekeneke was just dangerous, so consistent. It seemed like whenever he got up to full speed, which he gets to very, very quickly, that tilts the field for Columbus, having to respect that and worry about giving him too much space. When he was signed, when I was talking to sources about this, they were obviously like, we're super excited about him. We're signing him. That's why we like him. Just ease your expectations. Like, it's a U22 initiative signing. Yeah. This isn't one where we're spending 8 to 10 million, or like one of those like top of the market U22s where the expectations should be, even despite the age and all the issues, that like when you're paying a premium, they come in and they should be adapting pretty quickly. Again, they were like, we would love it. It was more or less like, if he gives us meaningful contributions in 2025, that's a bonus, because we think that he's a long-term signing and he's going to be very good, but we're not pressuring him immediately. Well, you can't drop him. He is so desperately important to this team right now. And I think we saw that in this game. That helps tilt the field. That helps give some space to the attackers. I thought this was a much better performance than, like, I didn't think that this was typical 2025 Cincy of, like, it just doesn't quite look right. Yes, there's still room to go, but, like, they were taking it to Columbus early in the game. Columbus stabilized. Columbus ended up getting a couple chances after it was 0-0. Like, they worked themselves into the game, but I thought Cincy was taking it to them early.
Yeah.
And then by after Columbus had their spell in the second half, thought that there was really, Columbus never plays for PKs. That's the Wilfred Nancy way, Impossible's opinion, right? Like, but at that moment, I think another manager set of fans would have been like, man, I hope we can hold on for pens. And the goal when it came was well deserved. It was a good ball to the back post to Evander. And it looked a little greedy coming in, but I think that was a result of a good sequence that just kind of, like you said, kind of got fumbled in over the goal line. But that I think was more indicative of something replicable than like, they just kind of got lucky with a scrum in the box and Denke flicked it home. Like, I don't know. I liked what I saw, and I still think Obi Nwabodo played 8 minutes. Again, it's not going to be easy to get through this round because Columbus are very good, or they have the potential to be good. They have a lot of good players, and we always will respect this team. If they are able to get through, as I expect them to, and again, as they are favored to, Obi Nwabodo, you gotta expect is going to be starting by the next round.
I mean, it will be in a month.
I think that makes all of the difference in the world to me for this team. And again, Matt Miazga should be back for that. So those are two crucial pieces to the team, and I thought this was a good performance, and things are trending up.
The one thing that stands out to me is the connection between Denke and Brenner is like non-existent. And
kind of. Like, you said it right. Between the three of them, I think there's Evander and Brenner are combining a little bit.
Yes,
but the three of them all together, like even Evander with Denke, it still leaves something to be desired in terms of like the connection.
And Brenner, to like the Alonso Martinez conversation, does not create anything, but will finish things, and his runs are not bad. Like, he's pulling away. When Denke gets the ball in the right channel, Brenner is finding gaps and pulling away into the left channel, or he's making runs across him.
Smart movement.
There are openings there. And then when Brenner gets the ball, it's similar, and they're both calling their own number. And that is frustrating for, okay, what's the strength of this team? Can those three link up and create chances? And what it was when Brandon Vasquez was there and Lucho was there that's what the case was, right? Like, there was a lot of times where since he didn't have to overcommit numbers because those players could create chances on their own. Now, they all are still capable of creating chances on their own individually, Evander being the top of that list, Denke being second. But the peak for this team is it working together. And I think we're waiting for it to just like click. And one game, it's like, there it is. Now it's working. They see it's working. They're overcommitting into it, and it's better. I agree with you that the flow of the team was better in this game, but the connection between all of them still wasn't there. The other advantage for this team is Columbus looks off the pace offensively, and that's an individual's issue. That's Diego Rossi playing his first game in a month and not being the same guy. Minutes. That's Lassi Lapalainen and Picard getting the starts alongside him, which is a little bit different than Cucho or Wessam Abu Ali or whatever the other options are. And I think with Columbus, it's been the story all year, and the question is just if there's enough in that attack for them to get over the line. I don't think they were so far off that I would expect that they're not able to in a home game. I would like to see. I would not start Lassi Lapalainen again. I guess that would be the easiest way for me to go about this. I would probably like to see Jason Russell-Rowe get the start, even with as much as he's struggled over the last few weeks. But it feels like Columbus probably needs to bring someone in as a center forward option, get Rossi out of that position a little more, but with finishers around him that can take advantage of the openings he creates.
Yeah, you talk about the light attack. Obviously, an indictment that Daniel Gazdag is coming off the bench. It's unfortunate that hasn't worked out. Jason Russell-Rowe has fallen out of favor as well, and that's where the front three ends up. Like Max Arfson, obviously Rossi, when Rossi's all good. Like Max Arfson is the most important attacker in this team as currently constituted. Again, him alongside Rossi. I didn't see enough for them going forward, and it's just no Wessam Abu Ali is really unfortunate. I still feel really safe and really confident in Cincinnati in this series, like I kind of did before it started. I thought Columbus looked fine, looked good, whatever, in game one, but it wasn't enough for me to shake any sort of my confidence in Cincy.
The one thing that flagged to me in this was Kubo is not as dangerous a threat and not as active on the left wing. And Herrera was really high to the point where there were stretches of this game where I was like, is Steven Moreira playing right wing back? Because the right side of the field for Columbus stayed so high and Moreira was so involved, which I think is great for Columbus. Like, I want that guy around the attack. I want to have that extra number. But for Cincinnati, they need to find a way to balance that out and make Columbus pay if that's the case. And, they don't have Orejano fully available, but is there someone that you can throw towards that left wing back spot? Or can you get Kubo to push a little bit higher? Whatever it is, they need to be able to take advantage of that a little bit more. I picked Columbus in advance of this series to win. I come out of this game feeling fairly comfortable that Columbus will push it to 3 games and that they're right there. And the home field advantage and the atmosphere should be there for this team. Rossi should be another week fitter, another week closer. Do you feel the other way?
Yeah, like I said, I feel very, very confident in Cincy.
Closing out in game 2.
Oh, no, I don't think that. I think that I'm not. I think that they absolutely can. They've been. I trust this team to go on the road and put in a performance. But listen, Columbus, with all of their histories and abilities, like, you got to give them the respect at home to make a stand. But like, since he had 11 road wins, that was second only to San Diego, who had 12, who set the record for most road wins. So if there's a team in the playoffs that you wouldn't mind going on the road, it's a
for sure. Team. The next game we have, the next series we have, don't worry, we did not forget about Chicago, but we have Austin FC as the next most potential upset in our rankings. So 4th here on this list. They come off the 2-1 loss on the road late on Wednesday night, our most recent game. They go down 1-0 fairly early. They come out of halftime with some more energy, some more pressure. They generate the equalizing goal. And then, not that it was against the run of play, but unfortunate of like the Buanga shot gets deflected up and over Stuver's head and lands for Ordaz. Did
you notice in the highlights, Ordaz taps it in and immediately puts his hands on his head like, oh my God, I must have been offsides. I fucked that up. Oh my God. Like, the panic in Ordaz's face. And I think Buanga was shooting him looks like, it was going in. Like, if you're offsides, I'm going to lose. Like, there was not a celebration.
That's what I couldn't tell was the, oh no, I'm off, or was the, oh no, I stole a goal from Buanga, and like, that's where the pecking order sits. Because I would do the same where I tapped in and be like, oh man, no, like, it's your goal. That's my bad. I have to be safe about it.
I'll take the goal bonus.
I believe it would have been Buanga's 100th career MLS goal, or 100th career LAFC goal. I think McKelly put that on Blue Sky going into it. He's on 99, which is perfect because he wears 99.
It's nice. So that's really nice.
It all comes back around. I love a little bit of symmetry like that. I'd say, so the 2 things stood out. One, in the first half, I think this game played out as I expected. Austin sitting in a little bit. LAFC trying to threaten through Sun and Buanga, and Sun dropping in, picking up the ball as they bypass lines and trying to turn and attack and play his wide guys in. Buanga knows better than I do, but the balance sometimes with when he goes quick to shoot 1v1 and when he holds up, I think he lost at times because there was a number of opportunities it felt like where, okay, it wasn't an easy 1v1, but he's one-on-one against Dessler. Like, I'd rather you lose that battle 3/4 of the time, but the one time you win it be the goal, then pull back out and cycle around. Now the attack dies. Now Austin has numbers behind the ball. Felt like that was too often to me in the first half. But the big thing that stood out to me, and the reason Austin gets back in this game, and what I think is a real thing that they can look back on and try and take advantage of, is that LAFC are playing in this 5-man back line with 2 in central midfield, and they're going to press high. And Danny Pereira and Owen Wolf are 2 of the best players in central midfield in the league on the half turn and dribbling in central areas. Danny Pereira is one of the best. He has been his whole career.
Yep.
That's where the goal comes from, and that's where their best moments come from, is they invite pressure, and rather than bouncing the ball or playing quickly, he turns, and if he beats the first man, there is 35 yards of space for him to dribble into. It's unfortunate that when he gets through that, the runners off him are maybe not as effective as they could be. Hence the goal being a half chance, deflected half chance, Owen Wolf pass to Gallagher and all of that. But there is a clear avenue there of, I think, where Austin's success came from. And I would say it's repeatable.
For sure, yeah. If Austin are gonna do anything in this series, it's coming from defensive unit, obviously, and the way that they're gonna play. But going forward, it's Pereira breaking lines and Owen Wolf with the final touch. And like you said, that is exactly where the goal came from. It was Danny Pereira busting forward, and then it was Owen Wolf with just a really calm and really smart little layoff for a tap-in. Like, the amount of players that panic in that situation, the amount of players that just see, I'm 6 yards out, I'm just going to try to poke it through, and that's not necessarily the wrong move, but Owen Wolf is seeing the game really, really well, and he kind of shapes up and then just rolls it across. It like, in hindsight, after you watch a replay, it's like, oh, that was so obvious. I don't know how many players make that pass, and Owen Wolf has just been so really, really good this season. It's been really fun to watch, and it's unfair for him at this stage of his career, and it's unfair given how much money that they spent on their front three. Yeah. Obviously, Vasquez is injured, but the other two are still there. The other two are worth $20 million in transfer fees and a whole lot more in salary. It's unfair that we're talking about Owen Wolf and Danny Pereira and just overlooking the 12 and 8 million signings in Uzuni and Bukhari, because I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. I don't think that they're going to be dangerous compared to Owen Wolf and Danny Pereira. Owen Wolf, a homegrown, and Danny Pereira, a super draft selection. So it's on two ends a compliment to bringing through your youth and developing these two players and giving them trust, and then a criticism of, well, you spent $20 million and right now they're like the fourth and fifth people we're talking about after, Brendan Hines, Yeah.
No, I think that's a fair complaint.
And it's nothing new, to be fair. Like, it's nothing new, right? But it's just worth repeating when we get to this point, when we're looking at Denny Bouanga and Son Heung-min again. Those are two of the best players in the league. Son Heung-min, LAFC were one of the few teams that were able to get that deal done right. I'm not suggesting that Austin is, but I am suggesting you could have spent your money a little bit better than on the two DPs that were on the field.
And it's totally fair to say, like, okay, you come out of this game, and we just said, like, can Pereira and Wolf lead them to victory in game 2? And that's not where the responsibility should fall. And if you spend that money, like, we just got the MLS player salaries. Imagine this team had Zinkernagel.
Right.
For 1/19th of the price of an Uzuni, you could have a player who is a factor on their own, and you're drawing pressure for them in these two players. And that doesn't even go into, like, all the other guys that are good MLS players who could be a difference maker on this team. They spent money for O'Brien. They spent money. They're spending money on Robert Taylor, which was like a midseason. Okay, can we get something to work? I don't know how Cascante's still on this roster year after year. He is like oh my God. He comes on late and you're like, oh, right, this guy still plays on this team. Like, this is absolutely wild. And there's a lot of pressure on these two guys. They are good enough to handle it. And I will be interested to see if LAFC, there's a few options. One is they change their setup. They put a third man in midfield and they try and kill things there. The other is, can they play Segura higher so that he's closer, so that when they're pressing, if one of the two in Chouanier or Delgado gets turned, he's a little bit closer to kill the momentum of the play before it gets to they're driving at a back line. Mm-hmm. But for Austin, you need Uzuni and Bukhari to be off the shoulder at those moments, and they need to be dangerous. Otherwise, it won't matter. Like, I don't know that Wolf and Pereira can generate enough goal-scoring chances out of this and enough finishing that it's get you over the line. But for Austin, they were closer in that game than I thought they've been in a while. I understand they've beat LAFC twice this season. They were odd circumstances, and they went to an Open Cup final. This was I thought, a better performance than the Minnesota away game in the semifinals of the Open Cup for them. So I thought this was one of their best, especially that second half. And you saw it in the first half, like Pereira dropping deep and being like, okay, I think I can turn on this defender and I think I can make something happen. But it's like, can they find enough support and help for them besides that? Shout out to Ryan Hollingshead for, like, literally arguably being the most valuable player in Major League Soccer. The numbers coming out, so he's on $645,000, which is below the threshold, right? To be a TAM.
What was it, 640 what?
642 something.
I think that's below,
Yeah, he's like right below.
Yeah.
And I put it out on Blue Sky last night, but, like, He wanted to live in LA when he left Dallas because he's from California. And this is credit to LAFC. The environment they've created, the training ground, the experience, the in-stadium experience, the trophies they pushed for, it's worthwhile for him to stay around. And he gets to play on the biggest stages in the biggest games. He gets bonuses from winning things, but like he's happy. And this is something you can't say for every team where a guy in this scenario says, no, I want to stay. It's the same reason Roldan and Jordan want to be in Seattle, and it's why Seattle can continue to be successful year after year, because you've created an environment, and this is off-field stuff. It's still money, but it's off-field stuff that people care about being a part of, and they want to be a part of. And Hollingshead every year steps up in these moments because he is one of the best attacking fullbacks in the league, and he is an advantage to them because he is probably underpaid for what he performs across the salary cap.
Yeah, and so I give LAFC a ton of credit, and it started with LAFC in the beginning. They had, they had the Benny Failhaber. They had, Mark Anthony K, Lee Wynn. They had like a lot of these like domestic based, like mostly MLS proven. I know Mark Anthony K came from USL, but a lot of guys like this. And then they kind of got intoxicated with the Cifuentes and the Chiqui Palacios and the idea of, insert any, TAM level or low level DP type of like European or South American signing. And that was the only year they missed the playoffs. And there was other circumstances. Vela got hurt, right? All of this. And they very clearly identified we swung too far in the other direction. And then the following offseason is when they got Hollingshead and Long and again, a lot of other players that totaled a ton of MLS experience. Yeah. So they kind of immediately were like, okay, like we got the balance off a little bit too far. And then they swung back and they've kept Long and they've kept Hollingshead and they've looked around the league, and now even like they bring in Matthew Choinière, they bring in Frankie Amaya, and I know that Amaya hasn't really been a big factor in this team. They signed Jeremy Ebobisse in free agency, while the Denny Bouanga, the Sun Heung-min, the Palencia, sorry, Hugo Lloris, you kind of go on down the list. They've gotten the balance so very right, and that's a big credit to the team of our bad messes up a little bit. Let's fine tune it again and continue to overturn this roster, and the processes are so good and so strong. And it goes to show that you need to look at every avenue of roster building. Yeah. And you can't just go out and have this I'm so good at scouting and identifying and making deals. Like, I'm just, screw it. Like, Ryan Hollingshead, like, who are you? I can go replace you, right? Like, I think that's a ton of credit at LAFC of being like, oh no, like, we need to uptick our value in some of these players that we had maybe overlooked for a year or two here. And it's paying dividends.
So Austin now going home. I think one of the unfortunate things, we had a question in the chat about the quality of soccer and what we've seen and maybe it being underwhelming at times, it being defensive. Do we put anything to it? I think it's the nature of a playoff anytime. Like NWSL was the same thing last year. You get into the playoffs, it's open and fun in the regular season, and then all of a sudden it gets tight and like every chance matters. People play at a different intensity level. This is one of the series I'm scared about, which is they just played a midweek game. Like for no reason. So now they're going to play on short rest. That tends to be lower quality soccer. It is fair because it's happening to both of them. But for us as a neutral, they're going to play this game on what? I probably should have had.
No idea. The games are all the time and also none of the time.
I'm just so angry across the board. Yeah, this game's Sunday evening.
It's Sunday evening. Great. And that's sick that we get Saturday games this Saturday after having no Saturday games last Saturday. No, not only do we get Saturday games, there's simultaneous playoff games. 5. Yeah, but
I'm
in a wedding on Saturday, so that sucks for me. That's just unfortunate timing. But come
on. Congratulations, you're getting married again?
Groomsman.
Sounds like you have time to watch MLS then. Sounds like you don't have any responsibilities. Portland, San Diego, and FC Dallas, Vancouver kick off simultaneous. Why? You have the playoff games, the whole thing. That's the thing we want to watch. That's the thing neutrals watch. That's the best part. These are both elimination games. That's the best part. Why would you put them on at the same time so it's harder to watch both of them? And yeah, so I do worry a little bit about quality in an LAFC Austin game, and that doesn't hurt coming off. Okay, I think there was a little anti-soccer at times in that first leg between these two teams. LAFC under Trunzo are who they are. He is stepping aside at the end of the season. I hope there's more soccer in them. I think Sun is a great starting point for that. I think there's a lot of other quality in this team to start from, and we'll talk about Sun when we get into the salaries and all of that in a second. But like the scheduling on this is really, really frustrating on top of the scheduling of this having been frustrating the entire time it is happening. Let's go to our next game. Finally, Chicago, Philadelphia. We obviously talked about the first leg in the Monday show. So we broke down a little bit how these teams played and whatnot. Maybe a little surprising to people that a series that went to a penalty kick shootout, we don't have Chicago higher on the list of upsets. Tom, what sort of was the feeling behind it for you?
Yeah, I just think kind of, this is probably unfair to Chicago, but it felt like that was their chance in game one. And also, Zinchenko is so very important to this team, and respect to Philadelphia, right? And there's plenty of respect to LAFC. Again, I just think that in this, like, NYCFC are obviously the clear one in this kind of rankings. Then Seattle, I think, is a clear two, and then I just think it's a big drop off for Columbus, Austin, Chicago. You could really argue any one of those three. I wouldn't have a ton of pushback. So I think this is less about Chicago being in like fifth in this than it is. It's just in that tier with Columbus and Austin. Yeah. Go ahead.
Nothing.
Oh, you said. Like you're about to talk and you lean forward and then you just
but I felt like you had something good, so I'm gonna leave it.
No,
to
I
you.
didn't have anything good.
We still don't know on Zinchenko. That's what I was gonna say.
I was hoping, as I started to talk, I was like, what if there was an update that I just haven't seen yet? And I didn't feel 100% confident.
Everything I'm seeing is he was, the report was he was in the gym at training. So
hashtag no days off, grind set, working, throwing the iron around, iron sharpens iron. Of course he's in the gym.
We don't have latest news on if he's available or not. We could only speculate on what Chicago chooses to do. I think it's pretty hard to believe that Brian Gutierrez isn't starting in the next game. So you have to figure out who's coming out of the team if that's the case. Does he play out on the wing? Do you change the look a little bit and make it sort of look like two up top with Bamba alongside Kuipers, which I actually really like because I think it gets Bamba into more open space. I think it allows him to vary his runs a little bit. And then you still have Gutierrez breaking out of midfield. You know you're going to get verticality from the wing backs or fullbacks, whatever you end up calling it in this game, because they both get high, right? Gutman loves to play high up the field. I think Dean's a really good option doing that as well. So I don't hate making this more of like a 5-3-2 with Gutierrez sitting in midfield. And I think it helps you probably control some of the game and play out a little bit easier while still having the vertical option. So I assume that's something in Chicago's back pocket right now. If Zinkernagel's unavailable, even if he is available, he likes to play inside. Like it might end up looking very similar to that anyway, but there's no way you can't have Gutierrez on the field, right? He scores a penalty. Like he's,
more.
Huh?
I said I couldn't agree more.
Okay. For Philadelphia, straightforward in this one. You got the opportunity. Like you went up 2-0 for a reason. You let them back in, but the feeling coming out of the first game, and I think the celebrations post game was like, all right, we messed up and we still got the win.
Yeah.
It's all there for us in this one. I think Alaski and Indy Vasilev scoring are phenomenal. Like those are the guys they need. Obviously, the stars, the DPs, the center forwards need to score, but there's going to be so much defensive focus on them with the three center backs. It's the secondary runners, and to get them both goals, and the way Alaski scored is massive. And I think that's what Philadelphia is going to try and lean on in the second leg. Next, we had here, I mean, this is murderers row on the bottom three, and the murderers are not the teams I'm naming. They're going to be the ones who get Dextered under the eye and then thrown into the Biscayne Bay or wherever he ends up putting them. We'll start with Nashville. Clearly, coming out of decision day, we had more confidence in Nashville. It was really bad in the first leg. We talked about it on Monday. But they have the best chance of the three, I think, which is if we play our best game, we'll win. I don't know that that's 100% true for Portland and Dallas because of the opponents they're playing and the quality they have.
I don't know if that's the case for Nashville.
I think if Nashville plays their best game, they win.
I think that for Nashville against a lot of teams, the way that Miami have handled them in their last two, I don't know.
Okay. I think that's fully fair. Like they've put up 8 goals in 2 games against them over the course of a week. We talked about on Monday. I think there's a mental edge for this Miami team. Rodrigo de Paul's like doing his thing in this game at the pure shithousery levels, which I respect the hell out of. I also would like to say we went to the game. My wife was like, who should I know? What should I say? And I was like, well, Rodrigo De Paul's a hot boy, so people like him. And she looked him up and was like, I'm unimpressed. And that made me feel better because, I don't know, maybe I'm higher up in the rankings.
He's no Julian Carranza.
Against Rodrigo De Paul than I expected. Evan Bush, a sleeper pick in the in the Ryan household over here. So I felt pretty confident about that. I'm just throwing it out there. I said it on Monday. I'll say it again. Nashville needs to go for it. And by the way, Bongi had a Schaffelberg moment in their game. Oh, whoa, it's a breakaway. Oh, whoa. And then the Bambi on ice in the final seconds.
Jackson Reagan was like super honest about it after the game. He was like, I probably should have done better there, but like he was by me. I wasn't catching him, so I shoved him.
Which I think Minnesota fans were pissed about, and I think they should be.
I respect the hell out of that answer. I love Jackson Reagan.
Also,
are you kidding?
I'm pushing him in that moment too, right? You know you're throwing a hand on him. You're just trying to make
all of us are. Everybody is. Everybody but like Makanya or maybe Aaron Long. Like who can keep up with Bongi in open space? Nobody.
No, for sure. And all of these chances come off mistakes. But Nashville had 2 of these chances to go ahead. I don't know what I've said this a few times. I don't know what the vibe's going to be like. Like Nashville fans have watched their team get battered in the last 2 weeks at home against this squad. Then they watch on the road. It doesn't look better. What is it? But they have to go for it. I think Quassam has to start in this game. I don't know if Wheel's the next option for a guy to get a start, but it has to be more aggressive going forward. It has to be front foot. You have to push and score goals. You're not going to sit in and beat this team. I don't know how many minutes he has in him. This feels like a Brugman series. We said it last time. I don't know why he didn't get the start over Acosta. Even if it's a situation where you push Yazbek maybe a little bit higher and bring Brugman in, but tell Yazbek, like, okay, you are part of the attack. Your job is not to come back and cover. I think there could be something in there for them. Is there anything big that stands out to you that I'm missing before we move to the next one?
No, but again, just for the sake of saying another obvious basic thing, Messi has 5 goals and 2 assists in the last 2 games against Nashville. That's why I think even if Nashville throws their fastball and hits it 1-on-1, like on the corner, Messi can just smack that thing over the wall. You know.
Hey, Spadini.
No, you muted yourself, bro.
Spadini, back him up. Why are you not backing him up on the cutoff there? Tom, if they hit their fastball 1-on-1 on the corner, God, it couldn't have been any deeper of an analogy.
Such a bro, dude.
On that one. Let's go to our final 2 series. They're out west. We start with Portland. We argued a little bit over this one. I think you were higher on Portland than I was.
Let me just say the bottom 2. Like, we're splitting hairs here. I don't think that there was realistically much of a chance for either of Dallas or Portland. I just think that you look at the games, the game models and the styles, and I think that it's more likely that Vancouver just choke the hell out of any chance that Dallas have to even really make an impact in transition or again, Dallas had 0 shots in game 1. And whereas Portland, again, I don't think that they are an actual threat to San Diego, but man, it was 2-1 and they had momentum, and then they still kind of had a chance or two after they went a man down on the road against San Diego. I just think that there's more gaps for San Diego. Overall, a very small likelihood here. I want to be very clear, but if we're splitting hairs between 7 and 8 here, I think it's Portland ahead of Dallas.
Yeah, you know that I think Dallas is one of those disappointing performances in the last game. I have no doubts about Vancouver. I think I picked them to go to MLS Cup from the Western Conference, but I thought Dallas would be more dangerous than, what did they finish on, 0 point something XG? I thought they would be more aggressive going forward. And so that's where, for me, I would have pushed them higher. I assume Farrington gets the start in this next game. They're going home. They've been they've been really good since the summer, at home especially. And then Portland also, not only do they not get the victory, they're going home in a way in which I actually think it exposes them more to San Diego, because they have to open up and play a little more. And you have to do so without Jimmer Foray, who will be unavailable for this game. So you probably bring Smith in there, but like, it's a half step back for you. Does it make Mascara's life a little bit harder trying to get forward? And I said it in the last game. I think if Pilcher gets the start again at right back, like, that's a matchup you have to win. And I don't think that gets easier if Jimmer Foray is suspended for the second game. So there's 2 question marks there for me. But for Dallas, yeah, they were pretty unimpressive in the first game in a rematch at a stadium they had just won, which, yeah, there was a lot of game states that went into that. And as we said, Thomas Mueller is like, why would we be intimidated by this? We were better than them, down a man for the entire game. They also will get Laborda back now. So that's huge for this Vancouver team, and they continue to get Gold a little bit healthier. They hope to get Brian White a little bit healthier. Congratulations to Tristan Blackman, defensive player, defender of the year in Major League Soccer. Well deserved for the performances. We talked about why I didn't vote for him and whatever. I don't question the decision at all. I think it's a great story for what Vancouver has built. Like, to go into Major League Soccer and help guys elevate. Tristan Blackman is the tip of the spear alongside Brian White of that.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, Tristan Blackman is, I don't know, he's long been a very good player in this league, so it's cool to watch him level up and get that recognition. I kind of assumed that this was going to end with Glesnes just because the most recognized center, again, he's a defender of the year, he's really good on the team that conceded the fewest goals. That's usually most of the formula. And again, Glesnes would have been a deserving winner as well, but I'm very, very happy for Blackman.
Came on this show and was fun. So if you come on this show and you're fun, there's a chance you'll win awards. Think about that for next year. Everyone who plays in Major League Soccer. Just think about that. That's out there for you.
Something to ponder.
Excited for these next two games. I think excited to see Portland get another home playoff game. This one finally on a weekend, so maybe they can get a little bit of an atmosphere, which was a complaint for the last game, which I think was fair and made it as hard as possible. Real quick before we move on to salaries, congratulations to Sammy Sarver, MLS Next Pro MVP. He's an all-time GA Cup legend in my GA Cup chats about the greatest tournament that's ever been played and is ever played with Columbus, which is why it was cool. Bradley Wright Phillips, who of course played in Columbus as he finished up his professional career, a bit of a mentor to Sammy Sarver in the academy before he went to Indiana University and scored a bunch of goals in college soccer. So he was the one who told him in the video, which was pretty cool to see. And North Texas continues to produce players for Dallas. It would be nice if they were then elevated to the first team and met with other talent that they could play around. And it was cool that Sarver got the chance in the second game against Vancouver after drawing the PK in the first game. I would say I think it was a mistake, and I think Farrington at this point is more effective alongside Musa, and we'll see what happens in the next game. But congrats to Sammy Sarver and Charlie Fiction, one of our Soccerwise dads, who's big fan of his game and what he can do, and is a Hoosier as well. So loves all of that going in. Let's move to MLS Player Association salary dumps. So for anyone who doesn't know, this happens 3 times a year. Does that happen in preseason? No.
Twice.
So it happens twice a year, and this is the only time we actually are fully aware of the amount of money on players' salaries. So when they sign with teams, for the most part, we're told now the contract length and the contract structure, aka it's a TAM deal, it's a DP deal. So we know the thresholds it sits in. We still don't have full clarity when these comes out. This is part of the issue with Major League Soccer. It's not possible to cover it the way we cover the NFL and NBA of like, here's every dollar in a salary cap. Here's the triggers they're on. Here's the options they have that could become more. Here's the second apron, like all that stuff. It's not possible for us to cover this league in this way. We try as hard as we can. If you want to see a lot of this information written down, which I would highly recommend, subscribe to our Patreon. It gets you access to our depth charts. We're updating those. Those have every player on a list per team based off their salary, how far out their contracts go, option years, all that type of stuff, as well as how the team sets up, who's a DP, international spots, and all of that. It's the best resource, I think, out there if you want to understand what's going on in Major League Soccer. And we're going to talk about a lot of these teams in the offseason. Second note I want to throw out there, because I meant to say it 10 seconds ago. I think next week, the teams that get eliminated won't dig into. We'll do that in 2 weeks because there'll be an international break. We'll do full postmortems on these teams, what their off seasons will look like, big things to know, potential coach firings, all these types of stuff. That probably won't happen next week. It will happen in 2 weeks as the entire round finishes and all of that. But Tom, the salary dump comes out. I know you're digging in. I know you're scrolling through it. What were sort of the big headlines for you?
Yeah, so particularly the one that comes out in the fall shows the summer signings. And the most interesting one was to see where Son Heung-min ended up. And Son Heung-min is just over $11 million in salary. He is now the second highest paid player in MLS behind Lionel Messi, who's around $20 million. Lionel Messi's new contract signed and announced last week, whenever it was. That is not reflected in these numbers. Any contract that was signed this year that doesn't go into effect until next season, which are most of these, if you're staying with the same team and getting a new contract, it's usually, if you sign it in June, it usually is for the following season because the money is usually doled out already on the salary cap. Regardless, those ones won't be reflected. One of them that was Georgia Mihailovic. He left Toronto. He left Colorado for Toronto in a $8 million cash fair. He's on 2.3 million in the salary. I feel pretty safe in my assumption that that number is going to look higher next year, different. The thing to consider for summer signings is also how the deal is like prorated, and the guaranteed compensation is supposed to be for a full year, but there's getting into the weeds, and I don't feel 100% comfortable ruling anything like scientifically of this is absolutely a third of what he's only making a third of that. Depends on when the player is signed, depends on all of these things. Paxton Aronson, who was the replacement of Georgi Mihailovic, and again, Mihailovic left in part because of getting that new contract and wanting to go to Toronto. Paxton Aronson is on like 2.25. He's like 50,000, whatever that is. It is not that much of a difference. So I thought that was very interesting in terms of the outlay for Colorado. Like they spent every single penny essentially of that transfer fee from that they got for Georgie to sign Paxton, and then the contract that Georgie got, the raise in Toronto, like Colorado ended up giving that to Paxton. I think that's interesting, and I was pleasantly surprised where that number ended up in terms of ambition and spend for Colorado, one of the teams that are the lower spending teams in the league. One that fans will rightfully not be thrilled about is Rodrigo De Paul's contract is listed at $3.7 million. That is well over the DP threshold. The discrepancy here in speaking to MLSPA and speaking to the league, MLSPA included bonuses that will happen if, and I'm using air quotes on if, we know that purchase options going to be picked up. If DePaul's purchase option is picked up, there are some bonuses that come with that. That is why that number is 3.7. What I was told is for this half season, he's getting 1.5 million, which keeps him under the DP threshold. So again, I understand why fans would be rightfully mad when they see that number come out, that he's 2 million over the DP threshold. But that's kind of that. The other interesting one for me,
he is not, by the way, just to throw out there, because I think it's obviously a frustration for fans. He is not the only player in this scenario. There are other players who we think either have front-loaded or back-loaded contracts where the team has a little more money this year and is like, okay, first year, we're going to give you 1.5 million, and then it's going to go down next year because they had cash left, or the other way around, where like Thomas Mueller is going to make more next year than he does this year, even prorated, because the contract is probably going to go up, and there are other players in this list who came on loan, like a Brenner, who took pay cuts. If they were to come back, it would have to be on the next number, which is what DePaul is going to do next year, replacing Sergio Busquets as one of the DPs.
Yeah, exactly. And again, Busquets and Alba, who are retiring, those are two. Messi, Alba, and Busquets, I believe, are three of the highest 7 paid players, something like that in the league. And 2 of those are retiring. DePaul takes one DP spot, and then they'll have the other one, which is something you already know. One of the more interesting things for me was I had heard kind of what the asks were, but the negotiations or lack thereof between Milan Olaski and San Diego. And there was just a lot of misinformation or misassumptions, not misinformation. I like fans were like, yeah, no. Obviously, we shouldn't give him a DP spot. No, he's not. They're not asking for that, right? But I didn't know exactly where this was going to land. Milan Olaski's on 550,000. San Diego have done a billion things right in their roster building. Again, I think Tyler Heaps, that front office, is, if not executive of the year, top 3, and that's not an argument. Milan Olaski, 550,000 feels like a no-brainer.
I'm going to ask a dumb question. Is that prorated half the year?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I'm assuming that he's like, based on my knowledge and conversations around these negotiations, I was expecting something around this range of like 500,000 to 600,000 as like the full year salary.
Got it.
I think that's what it is. We'll obviously know completely in April when they do this again for next year, but that's under the TAM threshold.
Yeah.
That's again, I understand the small sample size, but like, let's say your worst fears happen and that this was just an unsustainable run and it was great timing for the player, that he had his best ever stretch when it was time for a contract. If you miss on that deal and he does not perform at all, 550,000 doesn't cripple you in any way. And he's a center forward. They should be asking for that. Like, I was surprised at the beginning, like when this happened and he left. And I think we had the signs that like, oh, Philly are giving the contract to the player that teams were saying was asking for too much. Philly does not ever do that. It's always the other way around. Philly are transferring Gazdag or trading Kasper Schmeichel, where you're going down the list of 100 examples. Philly are not the team that comes in with the overpaying on a salary. So really, really well done by Philly there. And again, I'm still surprised with San Diego.
The other thing, which my understanding is internally, the other teams know these numbers already. This dump does not occur for the teams. Like there is a back end catalog which these numbers are put into that are seen internally. So just when everyone's like, "Oh, they're probably having the same experience as us," they are not. They are
Agents are. I'll tell you that much.
Agents are having their own experience because they're not keyed in the same way. But the odd part with Dolowski always was he was owned by San Diego's parent company team. So like the transfer fee you wouldn't have thought would have been the issue because
definitely wasn't.
It's staying inside of it. So it was all on salary. And if it ends up being that this is the number, then that is a very, very odd thing to have occurred.
Yeah, I agree. Couple more on my end. CF Montreal, despite signing a DP who was making $2 million in compensation, are still easily the lowest paying salary team in the league. So congratulations again to Montreal. Philadelphia Union are tied for second lowest spending wage bill, and they won the Shield. I know that that's something that they take great pride in. I remember in 2020, from speaking to a couple people, there was a disappointment on the structure of, I believe it was like Jamiro Montero's like transfer fee. That was like, no, our wage bill is lower than what it's being showed right now. We wanted to win the Shield and have the lowest wage bill. There's just like a sense of pride, like at that point. So Philadelphia, again, not enough positive can be said about what Bradley Carnell with the front office, with the players, all of them. Again, their $13.4 million is what their guaranteed compensation is. Like Sun Heung-min is $11 million. Like Sergio Busquets is 8, right? Like Philadelphia Union are doing that is truly incredible. Minnesota United aren't far ahead of them. They're listed at 14.5, but with all of these, and San Diego's another example. Like San Diego are only paying the senior minimum on Pellegrino and Corey Baird. But the MLSPA, what they care about getting out is what the player's being paid. It doesn't matter who's being paid, right?
It's
or what
across the two teams.
Right. So San Diego's number's a little lower, and like same Minnesota, like Julian Gressel, they're paying only a fraction of that. Miami are holding the rest. So Minnesota are in like the bottom 5 in salary spend, and they've had an awesome season. Toronto FC went from the second highest paid spending team in salary to the fourth fewest in a summer in which they added a DP and a high level TAM signing because they got rid of Insigne and Bernadeschi. Obviously, they are still paying them. Like the ownership still is on the hook for that. But in terms of like their current roster and the salary outlay, they went from second highest to fourth lowest.
Stuff. It's a bizarre thing. I wonder like where the debate then comes with the Philly stuff of like, just lift the salary cap. If Philly is spending so much less and winning now, what's the difference? Like if you're a team like that, what do you care? And there's only more money in there for you to sell players internally and move players on. I don't know. It's interesting to me that these low spending teams are doing well, and that in any way that would be an argument for the salary cap and not against it, of like, clearly it doesn't really matter. The other thing that happens is now fans go through and see players that frustrate them and how much they make. I would argue Randall Leal at $1.2 million is one of the worst contracts.
And let me just say that he was bought out by Nashville. DC are only paying the senior man, so I don't need to pile on to DC today.
Okay, fair. But there are some names in here of players who are making big money for some teams. There's a decent chunk of teams in the Red Bull DC Revs category where it's the 600,000 to 800,000 where you're getting nothing from some of these players. And that's where it's like, that should be a starter. Okay, you don't have to hit it out of the park like a Zinkernagel where it's like, I can't believe this.
Right.
But that has to be a good starter that can win you games every once in a while, that does their job at a high level. And a lot of these guys are rotation players in those spots. And that's where you look at the teams where it's like, okay, maybe they didn't strike out on all the DP signings. Maybe they're not spending $9 million on a guy who's not very good. But it's this middle of the roster stuff where if you're going 0 for 6, there's no world in which you're competitive. And I think that should be really frustrating for a lot of these teams. One of the things we said is we don't know where the prorated line lands for guys when they come in the league and what it stands for. Yes. So like I went in to look at like the Westham Abu Ali's and, you know, the big signings of the summer, like where do they stand in comparison to the league? But we don't exactly know where that number sits. Yeah. So we'll learn a little bit more about that one when we get the next dump after this one. But a lot to go into here. We're going to talk about a bunch of it when we get into our off-season recaps, and we'll know a lot more about a lot of these teams and where they stand. 3 big stories we want to talk about here. and them figuring out what next year looks like and who's on the roster and whatnot is St. Louis, Red Bulls, and of course, Atlanta. The big report coming out, I think, after we were done with the show, but we talked about it a little bit because the rumors and reports had started. Rumors because it wasn't you yet. Then the reports occur, and obviously the capital J's at the Athletic were able to get there. That Tata Martino is the front runner right now to be head coach once again for Atlanta United. Shocked isn't the right word to use, but I am very surprised by this. What do you make of this news and how maybe it happens and what it means for the club?
Yeah, and I'll start too to just litigate what our report means. Like we say, he's the clear front runner. I would go as far to say I would be borderline stunned if he doesn't become the next head coach. Like something would have to go wrong, as far as my understanding, for Tata Martino to not be the next head coach of Atlanta United. It's an interesting one. So they just brought back Miguel Almiron last winter. Hasn't gone well. Atlanta United were the second highest spending team in the league. Third highest after LAFC Sunshine. Third highest spending team in the league in salary. One of the worst teams in the league. No team spent more money on transfer fees over the last summer and this winter, over 2 window span in league history, than this team has. They still have major construction to do on this roster. And Tata Martino is a proven winner in this league. I mean, obviously he has all the history he has in Atlanta. I'm worried about him sullying that legacy in Atlanta. I think it's going to be a difficult job to walk into. But Tata, with what he's done in Miami, what he did in Atlanta, he's somebody who has earned, at this stage of his career, a big say in player personnel. So while Garth Lagerwey is kind of leave of absence from the club as he focuses on his treatment from cancer, and obviously all of the best wishes to Garth Lagerwey, Chris Henderson is the CSO now, and they have a pretty robust front office. They have a lot of respected people. Tata Martino is going to be as big a voice as anybody in what they do in the path forward for this team. And again, nothing is done, nothing is agreed, nothing is signed, just to be careful. But again, it something would have to go wrong, as my understanding, for him to not be the next head coach.
On the surface, it's understandable, right? Tata was really the face of the team when they came into the league. He's the coach for Atlanta's most successful period in the club's history. They are trying to get back there. He fits a lot of the things they are looking for. Understanding of MLS, past success in MLS, and ability to coach big names and big stars, which this team, as they spend big money, has expectation. He also has the relationship with Miguel Almiron. He also has a relationship with Chris Henderson in Miami. I wasn't sure I would say that ended positively for both Miami and the 2 individuals that I just mentioned. They lost to Atlanta in the opening round of the playoffs in an upset. And even when you just go back and look through the team and some of the signings they made, you know, Toto Aviles is a signing that you talked about affecting player personnel, right? Tata likes to go in and get young players from South America and experienced players, a lot of them coming from Mexico. And a lot of them have not worked out. Franco Negri, another one that didn't really work out for them. You look in central midfield, right? They brought in Rojas, which fine, whatever. It was okay, not great. Stefanel, like there was a lot of players that felt like Tata players in the Inter Miami team that were bad signings. That was the case as well originally with Atlanta. Some of them, not all of them. They hit the ball out of the park on the first round. Carlos Carmona, elite signing. Tito Villalba, elite signing. What they got from Assad on the contract style he was on, elite. And of course, Almiron and Joseph, the center of it. It just doesn't feel progressive. And I don't know that it saves this. Like, am I looking at it and saying, okay, Latte Loth and Moranchuk are going to turn it around because Tata's there? No. It kind of says to you, like, he's going to go out and get the next set of players. And I don't know that his hit rate is that high over the last few years as the league continues to progress and continues to change. And so I can understand, like, the morale side of things and the emotional side of things. It doesn't seem like a hard one to sell to Arthur Blank.
No.
He might be one of the only coaches whose name he still remembers.
Blank loves Martino.
Yeah, he talked about it. I actually found a picture of me interviewing him after MLS Cup and them winning, and he was like, we have the best coach in the league. We think we have the best coach in the world. He's one of the best coach. Like, he talked about him constantly. Yeah, it's not a hard one. And maybe if you're Chris Henderson, you look at things and you say, all right, things are a little bit in flux right now. let's bring in someone where they can share the pressure with me and there will be universal, excitement that he's coming in. And then we'll figure out the rest going forward. But it's a club that's had a lot of misses. I think Tata as an individual has had a lot of misses. And I don't know that it's a guarantee as much as maybe it would have been a few years ago that this makes sense at this point.
I think that's all fair, and I think part of that too is just the stink that's on Atlanta United right now, and how many times we've fallen for hashtag Atlanta's back. Before we move on to kind of the next team, but like the defense here of Atlanta, of like, screw it, let's just go get Tata. Again, one, like, obviously all the success he's had in Atlanta, Miami, and throughout his entire career, but just specifically within MLS, he's somebody who understands the league, loves the league, all of that. Since he left, they've tried the big European manager, failed. They've tried the big-time South American manager, failed. They've tried the hot rising assistant in MLS, failed. They've tried to go back and get an MLS-proven MLS Cup winner, massive, embarrassing fail. So at some point you throw your hands up and say, man, fuck it, like, just go get Tata. I don't know, man. I say that completely lighthearted. Like, the process is much deeper than that. Yeah. But they've tried every other avenue here. I don't know what it is. And so the one more point I wanted to say, Chris Henderson gave a press conference, and I haven't seen the word for word quote, but he's indicated that Moranchuk, Latzelat, and Almiron will be the DPs at the start of next season. Don't love to hear that. Don't love to hear that. And we'll see. We'll see if and when Tata takes over, if he has some differing opinions there. But I thought at least Moranchuk was going to be moved out for a different reinforcement. If that's the case, man, then Jesus Christ.
I think there's no chance Almiron's going anywhere now.
Nope. And I think I would like to. I don't know how much lower Latte Lots value you can get. Like, you have keep to that. So that's what, like, Moranchuk is the obvious. This hasn't worked. Let's figure it out. And if he's back, man, I don't know.
By the way, I realized as I was going through that list, I was like, I don't see the names. I think I was looking at the wrong list for Inter Miami. So the signings are more like David Martinez, Nicolas Frere, Marcelo Weingart, Mati Rojas, Federico Redondo. I don't know that that's and again, inside of a club, you don't know who made these signings and who didn't, but a lot of them feel very Tata, and they did not go super well. But I will say this, for any Liga MX club who overpaid a slightly experienced South American center back over the next 6 months, you've got your out right now, because Atlanta is taking them in on loan. So just line them up, and it is on its way. Huge news, though, in Atlanta. Let's go to these other two openings that we wanted to discuss for St. Louis. It starts with sporting director, and then it goes to coach.
Yeah.
They made their off-season roster announcements before they were required to. We know Berkey's been re-signed. They also made their roster triggers on options or not without a chief sporting director and without a coach.
Yeah. It's probably not the process you want. And it's probably not the process you do when you publicly say things like, I'm just here to be the president. I think it's stupid when business people try to control the football stuff. That's what Diego Gigliani said a couple months ago about St. Louis. And I reported
John Hackworth was making the decision.
No, it was Diego Gigliani. Everything that I've heard since Lutz Pfannenstiel was let go was that Diego Gigliani, privately within the club and the feeling from outside the club, is that he's going to be taking or wanting control of having, if not full control, a much larger say in sporting matters. And that's, I think, when you look from the outside, it's obvious. When you give Roman Berkey a DP deal and then make the contract option decisions a month before that they're due to be in, and the CSO search has gone on. They've been at the final stage for a while. This has already been reported. Corey Ray is one of the finalists. Will Kuntz is not. That has been kind of, there was at least interest, but that he's not at this, as far as I understand, unless that there was a crazy change. And
the guy who's sporting director of LA Galaxy?
Yes. Yeah, there was interest from St. Louis.
I'm interested too, if Will Kuntz wants to join Soccerwise.
Sporting director of Soccerwise.
Yeah, there's interest on this side as well.
So Corey Ray, a couple other finalists, as far as I understand. John Hackworth is in the mix in some way. I wouldn't call him the favorite. I believe it's Corey Ray and another person who I would probably assume it's going to be one of those two people. I would have expected a decision by now. So I preface when I say I expect a decision very soon. I would have already expected a decision by now. So I'm still kind of on red alert of figuring out when this is going to happen. It's got to happen ASAP. It should happen ASAP. Like they've definitely done plenty of interviews and due diligence, everything. They're doing the process right. So I'm assuming and expecting there to be news at some point soon, and we'll see where it goes.
On the players' announcements, I don't think it's like outlandish to think that they wanted Berkey to come back and the contract's there, and like if he's going to sign it, he's going to sign it. On the options that were exercised or not exercised, I think they're kind of, for the most part, the ones everyone would do, right? The higher paid players were not picked up. A lot of the players, Miguel Perez, like guys like that.
Yeah.
The three big ones are Chris Durkin, Sangbin Jong, and Zhao Klaus. Durkin, not for salary, but the fact that he's a U22 initiative player, and by picking up his option, he remains a U22 initiative player, which is a arrow in your quiver that you can't use otherwise right now. Sangbin, I think in general, maybe a little bit surprised that he's coming back, but they gave something up to get him.
They gave like up to $2 million to get him in the summer. Like you don't pull the plug on that immediately.
And then the other one is Klaus, who's on 1.3 million, so sits right on the DP line. He will be a DP unless they buy him down. His availability has been up and down. He's also kind of a specific player. And that's where it's like, well, what's the system? What's the style? Like, does he fit that? And you're hurting yourself by the fact that you don't have answers to any of those questions when you make these decisions. Rasmus Alm, Alfredo Morales, like those guys were always going to get declined. Henry Kessler declined as well, an obvious one, sitting over $1 million.
Huge option number. His option number is much bigger.
1.3 million is what we have listed at least.
And like that's right. The option number was much bigger.
That's crazy. He's in negotiations with the team about a potential extension. Would obviously be on a different style of contract. So, yeah, all of this, it's not wild. It's just like why rush it? Like at a minimum, just wait until the last day you have to do it. And if you don't have feedback from anyone else, then it is what it is. But it's very, very odd for St. Louis. And I think unfortunate for a club that, okay, the hope was the process would get cleaned up a little bit as they've let some of these people go. Lutz Van Zyl has been hired to run Aberdeen in Scotland. So
he will
decode Scottish football in a little bit. And then they can all celebrate him on that side of things. I wonder if he gets a Lamborghini. What was the car that had all the St. Louis stuff? He spent a year before the team actually happened driving around St. Louis, going to youth games and promoting them. And I think it was a Lamborghini that was covered in St. Louis stuff, but I cannot remember. Last one here is Red Bulls. Tom.
Yeah.
Any update there?
Nothing. So Julian de Guzman takes over as CSO. Jochen Schneider leaves. Have been critical of kind of his time here. So the club did say that it was a personal thing. And Jochen Schneider spoke about why. That is a serious cancer diagnosis for his wife, wishing obviously them all of the best. So Julian de Guzman will take over as CSO. Sandro Schwartz is out as head coach, as we talked about. So we'll see kind of where this all develops and where it all goes. But yeah, I'm curious to see what happens. Julian de Guzman said at a press conference that they very much are planning to use that third DP spot, which is good. They were planning on it in the summer as well. It unfortunately didn't happen with Timo Werner. I'd imagine that they're going to kick the tires again on that. But again, like it simply cannot be Timo Werner or bust. Like that is so very clear, and we'll see where they go. Again, they do still, for all the criticisms that you and I have made about the season, this roster, some of the things, a foundation that's around Forsberg, Choupo-Moting, Sean Nealis, Daniel Edelman, if he stays, Daniel Edelman, as I've reported, like there offers from within the league. There's interest in Europe. Like he's a guy that I think they could move, particularly after they sign Bergen this summer. But whether it's Edelman, Stroud, Ronald Doncourt, or Bergen in the midfield, that's a good midfield group. Nealis in the back, Isla in the back, Carlos Cornell if he stays in goal. There are a lot of strong pieces, and if they're able to get some flexibility, get the right DP signing in, if Lewis Morgan is fit, again, I understand that that's a big if they're able to at least mitigate the risk that if Lewis Morgan misses time, that they'll have another option that can kind of play in his mold. All of these things, this is all doable in one winter. Yeah. Very much so, particularly with the open DP spot and whatever they could get, say, for Edelman. And if they're able to, I don't know, I don't know what the appetite is for the club to use buyouts. Hack wouldn't be a bad decision if they had the investment there, and then that frees up a lot of money. So for all of the pessimism and correct criticism and fair criticism, there is optimism around the Red Bulls that this, with the right winter offseason, this could turn around immediately.
And I would say, with Edelman and that move, like they're super high on Audrey Mehmeti, who they're accelerating through the academy. So it would be okay, we have the next, he's not ready to start, but like
Right.
you spend a little pro money on a veteran who can fill that spot for a little bit, or it's just Donkor alongside Stroud. And then you still have that like high level prospect coming through, Julian Hall as well. So like it feels like they have the next generation pushing in, and they have a little flexibility then to say, do we move from one of these players to get money and cash today that we can use? And then they will come through and they would be the next academy stars over the next 3 years plus. Julian de Guzman, his background is fascinating. If anyone doesn't know his story that well, like he left Canada at 16 years old at a time when Canadian soccer players didn't get opportunities overseas. It was like him and Dero were the two that pulled into big time European academies. I think he was Marseille and Dero was Inter Milan. And he and his brother went on to be two of the best players to ever come out of Canada. His brother chose to play for the Netherlands because he had eligibility there, and ended up playing on the Netherlands in, I think, multiple senior tournaments like Euros and World Cups. And Julian de Guzman, played in La Liga at a time when, like, again, this stuff was not happening. Ended up coming back to Canada because he ended up signing with Toronto FC for a little bit as a DP, finished in MLS, and then went and basically ran the Ottawa Fury for like 4 years in USL. So he's got connections all over the world. It's why I think he ended up at Red Bull. I think he has some Red Bull connections that are people who are in the family. I think his nephew is like one of the top prospects at PSV Eindhoven. He is considered one of the top prospects. He's a U.S. youth national team. He's been called into U.S. youth 18 camps. Like, he's still connected in Europe. So outside of Timo Werner as a Red Bull family guy, I'm interested to see what Julian de Guzman's soccer background that he leans on in this moment is, where he chooses to go, if it is a bit more senior or veteran players that are coming into the club. And as you said, we hope the best for Jochen Schneider and his family as he heads back. And as I said, if I had a job opening in MLS, I would interview Sandro Schwartz. Like, I would be shocked if he doesn't get another opportunity in the MLS sphere if he wants to.
Correct.
Going forward. Okay, that's all for us. I am jealous of the life right now of Jackson Duzic, who says we started during his first class for the day and we're still going. I love that you're hanging out in classes and just crushing a little bit of Soccerwise, learning, and then you come back in and you get all the knowledge from us. Thank you to everyone who was in the chat here today. It's the best time of year. We got salary dumps, we've got playoffs, all of that. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're going to be in the Discord all weekend watching the games. NWSL Decision Day on Sunday as well, right up against the MLS playoffs. So hang out in there with us. Sign up to our Patreon. If not, we'll see you on Blue Sky. We'll be back next week with all of your coverage. The MLS playoffs, USL Championship, USL League One, and